everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. Tonight, my guest is Brennen Nicole Duffield. Brennen is a nature photographer whose work is rooted in a deep sense of exploration and discovery. Based in Arkansas, she serves as an ambassador for Arkansas tourism, sharing the beauty of the region while continually seeking out the country's hidden nooks and expansive dark skies. Her passion for both photography and education has led her to author more than a dozen photography guides, helping others navigate everything from chasing waterfalls and autumn colors to capturing the night sky. Whether she's leading immersive in the field workshops or offering one on one learning experiences, Brennen is dedicated to helping photographers slow down, look closer, and connect more meaningfully with the landscapes they encounter. Through her images and her teaching, she invites others not just to see the natural world, but to truly experience it. You can find her on Instagram at brennen.nicole, and you can connect with her through her website at brennen.nicole.com. I'm going to link those in the show notes below so you can find them on the YouTube channel. In tonight's presentation, Intro to Astrophotography and the Effects of Light Pollution, Brennen will share her tips on how to photograph stars, the Milky Way, and other celestial bodies, with practical guidance on gear, settings, and composition to help you capture their quiet brilliance. Welcome to the Happiness Hour, Brennen.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Just before we started, I wanted to I kind of like to tell people how I find them. And you popped into my feed, and I think it's because I follow a couple of astrophotographers. And you now with Instagram, it's if you follow a bunch of cat videos, all of a sudden you get a lot of cat videos. And it was kind of I was going through my little astrophotography phase, and all these new people kind of came in and, curious. So I click on them, and your work kind of popped right off the screen. And I did a little deep dive on your website, and I thought, I wonder if she would come and do a presentation. And I didn't, have to wrangle you at all. You were just sure. So I appreciate that. So welcome to the program. I did a little intro for you. If there's something that I missed and you want to take the opportunity to fill in the gaps. But otherwise, I'm going to hand over the screen to you, and we'll just, it's yours.
So here we go. Again, just a little bit more about me. My birthday is on Earth Day. I think that's pretty cool. I was named after the Irish Catholic patron saint of navigators, Saint Brendan, and so I just thought they would feminize it a little bit and turn it to Brennan and throw an extra E in there. I graduated from the University of Central Arkansas with a Bachelor's of Art degree with an emphasis in graphic design and photography. I had to pick a secondary emphasis, and I chose photography, and it was film. It was black and white film back then. So that kind of dates me a little bit. I actually began my professional career in the commercial construction field because when I graduated college during the recession, there just wasn't anyone hiring an artist anywhere. But what was still happening was commercial construction. So I started as a office manager. I worked my way up to an estimator and then a project manager, and I ended up owning my own roofing company for half a decade. Not fun, do not recommend. I really wanted to focus on photography, and in 2021, I became an ambassador for the state of Arkansas tourism, and then an ambassador for Spencer's Camera and Photo in 2024. They actually specialize in astro modifications. I'm also an influencer for Bedford Camera and Video, which is a camera store in the Midwest. and I was a leader for the Arkansas Natural Sky Association and helped plan the Dark Sky Festival for a couple of years. And I'm a member of the International Dark Sky Association. All right, so where all I've gone, I have gone to pretty extraordinary adventures. I've road tripped across 35 states. I've hiked over 1,500 miles. I've captured 550 waterfalls, and I have visited over 110 national parks, state parks, and national forests. And I have lost way too many nights' sleep to count, but each moment has ignited my passion for adventure and photography even more. I also own and operate Brennen Nicole Photography, which is an adventure photography based company focusing on education and travel. I teach both local and out of state photography workshops that's geared towards capturing really cool landscapes and long exposure techniques and getting to take really cool adventures. All right, so where to start when you start taking pictures of the stars? So today we're going to delve into correct gear that's needed, the necessary camera functions, what settings you need to use and how to focus at night, the alignment and movement of the Milky Way, the useful apps that help me plan a night under the stars, and different types of images and where to go see the stars, which also happens to be my why. So first, what is astrophotography? So this is the art and science of capturing images of celestial objects like planets, stars, galaxies, and other deep sky objects. It does involve using specialized techniques to take pictures of the stars that are a million miles away. Um, and when you mix the night sky with a landscape image, this is when you get astro landscape or nightscape photography. So there's different types of astrophotography that you can capture with our modern cameras. Some are the more popular types are going to be the Milky Way core and other nebula, astro landscapes, which is what I specialize in, as well as capturing the moon, star trails, twilight images, and meteor showers. So what is the Milky Way exactly? The Milky Way is a barred spiral galaxy that is home to our solar system and many other stars, planets, and celestial objects. And you can see we are here. It is called the Milky Way because it appears as a faint milky band of light that can be seen stretching across the night sky. It is estimated to be about 100,000 light years in diameter, and it contains between 100 and 400 billion stars, as well as gas, dust, and dark matter, and a spiral-like spinning pinwheel. Our visibility of the Milky Way, though, is restricted to the nearest 1 to 2,000 light years away. Our solar system is located within one of the Milky Way spiral arms, which is about 25,000 light years from the galactic center. The Milky Way is part of a group of galaxies called the Local Group, and it includes the Andromeda Galaxy and several smaller galaxies. The Milky Way and the Local Group are part of an even larger structure called the Virgo Supercluster. The Milky Way has played a significant role in human history and mythology, and it continues to be a source of fascination and study for astronomers, scientists, and photographers. And studying it and the many stars and planets and other objects can help us better understand the universe and our place in it. So now we're going to talk about what gear you need and why. First, you are going to need a DSLR or mirrorless camera. You will need a wide-angle lens that can open up to at least f2.8. Lenses that I have personally used is the 14 millimeter f2.8, which is a Rokinon. It is a full manual lens. It's about $250. It's great for DSLR starters. I've also used a 16 to 35 f2.8 from Canon, 24 to 70 f2.8 from Canon, 15 to 30 f2.8 from Tamron, which is my personal favorite. It's my go-to astro lens. And then I've also used the 15 to 35 RF f2.8 for Canon. You will also need a tripod and an intervalometer and a large, fast memory card. Why? So you're going to need a camera that allows a full manual control as well as focusing manually with a lens, an advanced camera that can handle noise at high ISOs. You're also going to need a fast lens, which this allows wider apertures and for lower ISOs. And you're going to notice that the Milky Way just isn't as visible at f4 compared to f2.8. And then if you compare that to f1.8, it's even more mind-blowing. You are going to need a tripod. This is a must. There's just no way to handhold for as long as our shutter speeds need to be on that. Intervalometers, this is not only great to use as a shutter release so you don't shake your camera, but also if you when you move into stacking images for noise reduction, this just helps you take sequential photos and don't have to keep count in your head. You will also need a large fast memory card, and this is helpful when taking very long exposures in RAW format because it's large file sizes and it's a lot of data to collect. All right, so now let's discuss camera and lens functions. Okay, so be sure you're always shooting in RAW format because you want to collect data and not have the camera take and compress the photo for you. You will turn off both long exposure noise reduction and high ISO speed noise reduction because doing the noise reduction in camera will lead to losing signals from the faint stars that are hidden in the noise. And the camera will think that those tiny spots are noise, and then the noise reduction will actually kill your stars. And then also it does add quite a delay in the processing time, which leaves a huge gap in between your pictures. And if you're trying to do a star trail image, that gap is just absolutely, you don't need it. Know how to change your camera, your white balance in camera to Kelvin. You're going to shoot your stars typically at around 4,000 degrees Kelvin, and it's going to help cool down the sky to like a more of a darker blue tone, and that'll make your clouds more white and the light pollution more white too. Some art people's artistic preference is more of a blacker, natural looking sky, so you can just leave it on auto ISO or just warm it up a little bit because obviously, if you're just shooting in RAW and you're going to take it into post, 1,000 degrees here or there is not going to make a huge difference. Also, check your lens for image stabilization and be sure to turn it off. It can also be called vibration compensation or VC, and so just always turn that off if you're shooting on a tripod. So, topic 3 is correct settings to capturing the Milky Way. First, you got to worry about your ISO. The importance about it is it determines the amount of light that's reaching your camera's sensor. And when you increase the ISO, the camera becomes more sensitive to the light, allowing more light to be captured in a shorter amount of time. This is very important when you're doing more deep sky objects, which can lead to longer exposure times. The downside, though, is when you increase your ISO, it's going to have negative effects on the final image. One of the most significant issues is noise that you're going to have in your photo, and because when the camera sensor amplifies the light that it receives and the ISO increase, so does the amount of noise. And this can result in a loss of detail and decrease in the overall quality of the final image. Another issue with increasing your ISO in astrophotography is the impact that it's going to have on the dynamic range. And that's just the range of brightness levels captured in an image from the darkest shadows to the brightest highlights. And so as your ISO increases, the dynamic range decreases, which can result in lost detail in your highlights and in your shadows. And so just to combat the negative effects of increasing our ISO, we use a technique called stacking. So this involves taking multiple images of the same settings and then combining them into a single image using specialized software like Sequator or Sequitur or Starry Landscape Stacker. And I'll touch more on this here in a second. But just beginner Milky Way ISO settings is anywhere between 1600 and 6400. You will just need to find a good balance between capturing enough light and minimizing noise. If you have a crop sensor, this will determine a higher ISO since they don't allow in as much light. And you're also working against whatever light pollution you have too. So the more light pollution you have, the lower your ISO will be to be able to capture anything before it completely blows out. When I go out and I shoot Milky Way in New Mexico in a Bortle 1, I can shoot ISO 25,600 because after I get done stacking that, there's no noise and I have this beautiful detailed Milky Way. Aperture is your next setting. The importance about it is it determines the amount of light entering the lens, and it also affects the depth of field and sharpness of the final image. And just like our eye, when we are in darker areas, our pupils are going to dilate and our eyes widen to let in more light, yet what we see just isn't as sharp or detailed. So capturing as much light as possible is crucial if you want to create a high quality astro image. And by using a wider aperture, more light can reach the camera's sensor, which allows for shorter exposure times and increased detail in the final image. But the downside is a reduction of depth of field. And so a wider aperture is just going to create a shallower depth of field, and that's going to result in a loss of detail in the foreground or the background of the photo. And it also will create a coma effect on the stars, like a wide angle distortion in the corners, and it'll make them look like little UFOs instead of being pinpoint sharp. Another issue when you're at really wider aperture is the impact it has on the sharpness. So using a wider aperture, the edges of the lens become less sharp and it results in a decrease in the image quality. And you can notice it'll almost be like a vignetting that happens as well. So, and this is where distortions and aberrations occur. So just to help to fight that on a wider aperture, we do what's called stopping down or just narrowing the aperture. So this just involves stopping down one stop. It's that simple. So instead of shooting at f2.8, I will just shoot at f3.2, and that will help eliminate the vignetting and the coma in the corners. Right, so then you got to worry about your shutter speed. And so this determines the amount of time that the camera shutter is remaining open and allowing light to reach the camera sensor. So just like how long before the eyeball blinks, and just like the human eye, when you're in low light and you're staring at something, you're going to not blink for a really long time. So your camera needs to do the exact same thing. So when we're doing night photography, the objects that we're photographing are very faint, and capturing them just requires as much light as possible. So by using longer shutter speeds and the more light can reach the sensor, which just allows for increased detail. But the downside with using longer shutter speeds does have the introduction of things like motion blur. So when you leave your camera open for too long, things can move, like flowers in your foreground, trees blowing in the wind, your camera can get bumped by an armadillo, all sorts of things can happen. Um, so um, Another one that you get when you use a longer shutter speed is you're going to have noise that's going to be in the final image because when the shutter remains open longer, then the more heat that the camera's sensor generates, and that will introduce noise, especially in your darks and in your shadows. And so to combat the negative effects of this, we use what's called tracking. We will use an astro tracker and we will mount our camera to it, and it rotates with the earth, and it allows us to get really sharp stars for really long exposure times. But if you're just wanting a beginner shutter speed setting, just anywhere between 15 to 30 seconds. Again, this is going to depend on ambient light and light pollution. You can use what's called the rule of 500. So you take your focal, 500 divided by the focal length. So if you're shooting at 20 millimeters, then you would get a 25-second shutter speed. Last few things you have to worry about to shoot the Milky Way is your focal length. So doing an astro landscape, you really want to set your focal length to encompass both the foreground and the sky. So that's just why we shoot with really wide open lenses. So somewhere around 15 to 20, I usually go around 18. I don't know why, that's a great sweet spot for me. And then you've got to worry about focusing. So you can set the focus on your lens to manual focus. And then on the focus ring, you should see an infinity symbol, and you can just set it to in there in that section. Change your screen to live view and then zoom in with the magnifying glass on your live view screen into the sky, and just adjust the focus ring until the stars look like twinkling dots of glitter. And my trick is I'll usually get it to where they're completely out of focus, and then I'll turn it hard the other way and I can watch them get sharp and then go out of focus again, and then I can go right in that middle. In between those two blurry spots is my sharp spot, and that's usually where and I'll take a mental note of where that falls on the lens so I know to go to that spot each time. And then you just shoot. And then you're just going to check your image for focus and exposure and just adjust accordingly. So just to recap, if you want to take a picture of this, this would be great. There's Milky Way settings of ISO 1600 to 6400, f2.8 to 3.2. Your shutter speed using the rule of 500 should get you somewhere between 15 to 30 seconds, 15 to 20 millimeters, and then focus to infinity. So now we're going to discuss the alignment and movement of the Milky Way. The Dark Horse Nebula, or Great Dark Horse, which is sometimes called the Prancing Horse, is a large dark nebula that, from our perspective, obscures part of the upper central bulge of the Milky Way. It is one of the largest group of dark nebula in the sky. The Dark Horse borders with Scorpius and Sagittarius constellations. And this area of the Milky Way, what we usually want to capture, is called the core. It is approximately 2.5 light years wide and 1,500 light years away and shines at a magnitude of 6.8. And if you can see my mouse right here is the Dark Horse Nebula. Here's his back leg, his back, his prancing feet, and his head and his ears. So understanding how to set up a composition before you get on site is super important. The Milky Way core moves constantly. It's actually, we're constantly spinning and moving, and not just throughout the night, but also throughout the months. So it does have a season. In the Northern Hemisphere, we usually get between late February to mid-October to shoot the core. In the early season in February, it's barely going to be making its appearance over the southeastern sky just before blue hours, like around 4 to 5 in the morning. And it's going to be parallel with the horizon. It's going to look like a flattened rainbow arch. As each passing month, it's going to rise an hour earlier than the previous month. So March will be like 3 to 4, April's 2 to 3, May is 1 to 2, until fall when it rises just after sunset. And also for each passing month, it's going to be more vertical in its visibility time. So during the summer months, it's almost perfectly up and down in July. It will also move across the southern sky a little bit more each passing month. Like I said, in the February, it is to the southeast hard. And by October, it's to the southwest. And during the summer months, it's directly south. And you cannot photograph the core during certain lunar phases throughout the month, but if the moon is up during visibility hours and the larger the moon is, the less capable you are. But you still get about 20 days a month where you can still go out and shoot the Milky Way working around the moon. All right, so now let's talk about some useful apps to help you plan. There's two that I use in particular, and that is Photo Pills for its sun tool, depth of field tool, spot stars, and night AR function. And then I use Planet Pro for its planner, its viewfinder, virtual reality, and the dark sky ephemeris tools. And I'm going to show you how each of these work. All right, so first let's start with Photo Pills. The sun tool is probably one of my most favorite go-to quick glances for the day. I can pull it up and I can see from each location and set it up here in the settings. You can change the date and you can change your location, and it'll tell you everything about your day in one quick glance. Blue hour, golden hour, sunrise, daytime, night, golden hour, the twilight times, nighttime, when the Milky Way is visible, when the moon rises. All of it's in one quick glance here for you. So you can even start to plan your evening. This is right where I start to even make sure it's even possible. Next is our depth of field calculator. So when you're shooting wide open, especially, you can get some hyperfocal distance issues. And so the depth of field calculator can help you fix this. So what is a hyperfocal distance? This is the distance beyond which all objects can be brought into acceptable focus. If you just, all you have to do is put in your camera's make and model, the millimeter you're shooting at, the f-stop you want to shoot at. I was doing a blue hour shot for this, and how far away your subject is. This is probably a barn, and it tells me my hyperfocal distance. So it's saying with these settings on this camera, everything 2 foot 2 inches from your lens all the way back is in focus. Anything 2 foot 2 inches from your, from there to your lens will not be in focus. So all I do is just not include that 2 foot 2 inches in my frame, and I'm fine. The night AR function is also really great. If you are on site, this is really great. You can just pull it up and you can just slide your finger across it and it'll show you it'll show where the Milky Way will be at a certain time. But you have to be on site for this to work great. So you can also change all the settings down here, or here you can change your focal length down here. and it can tell you what it looks like. Okay, so this is one of my favorite tools in PhotoPills. It gives you the actual correct shutter speed for shooting the stars. So you tell it your camera's make and model up here. And then you put in the millimeter you're going to be shooting at, your f-stop, and you want this to stay accurate. So you remember that rule of 500? It's trash. You can go ahead and forget it. It's going to fail with most recent cameras. It tells me I would have gotten a 25-second shutter speed, but the NPF rule, which takes into account megapixels and microns and all sorts of things, is now telling me that I'm only going to get 5.78 seconds. That does not mean 6 seconds. That means 5 seconds. So I will only get a 5-second shutter speed now. So this is where this becomes crucial. So now I only have one other, I can open my f-stop to 2.8, but that's not really going to get me from my 25-second shutter speed down to 5. So my only other option is to raise my ISO. So if I was shooting at ISO 4000 or 3200, now all of a sudden I'm going to have to raise it to 10,000. You're going to have noise. And this is why we do that stacking. And again, we'll talk about that here in a second. The other tool I love to use is Planet Pro. This is probably one of my most favorite tools. Photo Pills was created by astrophotographers, but Planet Pro was created by astronomers. So it's a workhorse. This thing can really get in depth. It has all these different ephemeris features. So this is a really great tool when it comes to planning a composition ahead of time, and especially if you've never been there before. It has 24 ephemeris features that track everything from the sun, moon, eclipses, time lapse, rainbow position, tide height, and even things like satellites. I usually keep mine on Milky Way Seeker, and so it'll tell me the elevation, angle of the core, how many days the composition that I put in the screen is actually possible. So right here it tells me between this date and this date I had 112 days that I could have pulled this composition off. So that like really helped me because I'd never been to this location before. And it's just like Google Maps. You open it up, you tell where you want to stand, you drop a pin, and you set your focal length and everything right here at 18 millimeters. This is usually my sweet spot. And it does all the work for you. And so I was going to camp at Lower Blue Lake in Colorado, and this was like I don't know, 3,000-foot climb to this lake. And it wasn't like I could scout it out easily. It's a 17-hour drive from my house, so I had one shot to get it right. And so I really leaned on Planet Pro to get this right for me. And this was the date and the time that I knew that I was going to be there, and I wanted to get this composition of the mountains and the lake and the Milky Way. And so it showed me that I needed to be there and set up at that spot at 10:32. So when I got to camp that evening, I just pulled up Planet Pro, and I was a little blue dot over here in the campground, and I just walked right into my little dropped pin spot. And I was like, well, I have to be here at 10:32, I guess. And so I want to show you how scary this is, because this is what it said it's going to look like, and this was exactly what it looked like. So you can see it is super accurate. So just some EXIF data for you. My foreground here was shot at ISO 100, f11, 30 seconds, 4 images that I focused stacked just to get the flowers and the mountains sharp. And then I waited for the stars to come out. I shot at ISO 20,000, f3.2. At 6 seconds, I was on a different camera than an older camera than my R5 for this one. And I stacked 25 images. Right. They also, I really enjoy using its dark sky ephemeris tool so I can kind of see the Bortles class of the sky that I'm going to be shooting in. So you just drop a pin in your desired location, scroll over to the dark sky ephemeris up here at the top, and it'll tell you the Bortle class wherever you're planning on shooting. Okay, so you've heard me say stacking, stacking. So now we're going to talk about it and some other advanced techniques. Okay, so stacking just consists of taking multiple photos with the exact same settings. It has to be the exact same settings, same ISO, same shutter speed, same everything, and they need to be taken one right after the other. And then you use post-processing software to just realign the images for you. So what this is going to do is, because stacking again becomes so necessary once we follow that NPF rule, and now my shutter speed's only about 5 seconds to avoid trails. So now my ISO has to go to like extreme astronomical levels just to achieve that. And then when I'm doing that, again, I'm bringing in more noise and hot pixels, but the stacking software is going to look at this, and the hot pixels are in different spots in each photo, but the stars are not. So it can go through and read and see which ones are like hot pixels, and which ones are stars. And then it deletes out hot pixels, it deletes out planes, satellites, anything else that's coming through your frames that doesn't belong. And it keeps everything that's consistent. So then you get a image that's 25 pictures of the stars that are all aligned together and perfectly sharp, and just getting rid of all the noise and getting rid of all the unwanted objects. So you would use things like, if you are on a Mac, you use what's called Star Landscape Stacker. It's $40. It's worth it. If you are on PC, it's Sequator or Sequitur, Tomato Tomato. It's free. So that's why a lot of astrophotographers love it. But again, you can just get much more enhanced detail and color, and it's much more visually appealing. So there are some different levels of Milky Way photography. So you can start again with the beginner, which is just taking single shots, taking it around ISO 3200, just open up to f2.8 and using the rule of 500 for your shutter speed. You're going to get a lot of compositions in one night, especially if you throw in a low level light somewhere. But even when you're shooting at low ISOs of 3200 for Astro, that's low, you're still going to have noise in your darks. And your Milky Way just is not as prominent at ISO 3200. And I'll even have my participants go out and take pictures at 3200, and then I have them take one at ISO 10,000, and they're just mind blown. Then you're going to start really wanting to get into more of an intermediate after a while, wanting to bring out more details. So you're going to start stacking and taking multiple photos, somewhere just 10, 25 shot at ISO 10,000 to 20,000, again, depending on ambient light, light pollution, things wherever you are at. People always ask me, well, how many? 10 to 25? That's quite a difference of number. So the software loves squared numbers because it's going to reduce it by the square root that many times noise reduction. So if you take 4 pictures, you'll get 2 times noise reduction. 9 pictures and stack them, it's 3 times noise reduction, so on and so forth. And so if I'm doing social media pictures, like I know this will probably never make it to a print, I'll stack 9, 16 maybe. If I think I'm going to print this large somewhere for a client one day, I will stack 25 to 36. So that way I can really get good quality blown up images. I'm also going to stop down to f3.2 and use that NPF rule for my shutter speed, about 5 seconds, and stack in post-processing. This will drastically reduce noise, but this does not just absolutely eliminate it from the darks in your foreground completely. It will give you much cleaner images, but you are still going to lack depth of field from just being shot wide open. Again, the depth of field tool in photo pills is great at showing you your hyperfocal distance, just so you know that your image is sharp. And you can get several compositions in a night, especially with low level lighting. Eventually, you'll probably want to move to more advanced, where you're going to do what's called blue hour blending and capture your foreground at blue hour at ISO 100 at f11 for up to 30 seconds. After that, it's just too dark. You'll take multiple images, again, 10 to 25, shot at the same ISO, higher ISOs, stopping down to f3.2 for a shutter speed of about 5 seconds. And then you'll stack and blend the images in post-processing, or you'll track your shots too. This will just give you the greatest depth of field and the least amount of noise possible, but you're really not going to get a whole lot of compositions in a night because patience is definitely a virtue. All right, so now let's talk about the different types of astro images. Can't always shoot the Milky Way. Like I said, there's a season and the moon is out some nights. So what else can you shoot? Let's talk about the full moon, up close and personal. So you need to understand that there are lunar phases. It goes new moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, third quarter, waning crescent. Again, new moon, this is when most people think you can only shoot the Milky Way, but you do not. You can work around the other parts of the moon of when it's rising or setting and still work with the dark sky. You might only get an hour or two, but that's totally doable. So to shoot a full moon, what you will need is a very large zoom lens. I like to work with a 100 to 400 millimeter or a 150 to 650 millimeter. You can use what's called the Looney 11 rule, which is ISO 100, f11, 1/100ths or 1/125ths of a second. I will typically use the reciprocal shutter speed of my focal length. So if I'm shooting at 400 millimeters, I will have 1/400th of a second shutter speed, which also means my ISO has to go up quite a bit. So I usually shoot at ISO 100 or around 800 for that. Just something to get out there and play around with and just see what you like. You're going to need a fast shutter speed because you're zoomed in. The moon's going to be moving very fast across your frame. You will see trailing. If you do not have anything, if you have anything slower than 1/100th of a second, you will start to probably see some issues there. You'll need a tripod is great to help keep you steady whenever you're holding that big zoom lens. And you can also use a 2-second delay to help keep it sharp. If you scan this QR code, it will take you to a free lunar cheat sheet on my website that you can download and it'll fit right on your phone and you can take out in the field with you. Okay. So what if the moon is not so full? Like what aperture would you use? So the smaller that the lunar phase and the less light that's hitting your sensor, it just means your aperture needs to be wider. So again, full moon f11. As you move on down to a crescent moon, it's f4. A total eclipse is f2.8. If you're wanting to stargaze, again, f2 or f2.8. Just think so. Great little chart to help keep you. All right, so now let's talk about star trails. Okay, so Polaris is also known as the North Star, is a bright star that is located very close to the North Celestial Pole, which is the point in the sky around which the stars appear to rotate as seen from the Earth's northern hemisphere. It is the brightest star in the constellation Ursa Minor, or Little Bear, and it can be easily located in the night by following an imaginary line from the two stars that make up the bowl of the Big Dipper. And because Polaris is so close to the celestial pole, it does appear to remain almost stationary in the sky as all the other stars seem to rotate around it. This makes for a very useful navigational tool, but can also be used to determine true north for anyone in the northern hemisphere. Polaris is a bright and massive star. It has a luminosity around 4,000 times that of the sun and is located around 430 light years away from Earth. And it's considered a relatively stable star with a surface temp of around 6,000 degrees Kelvin and a lifespan of around 100 million years. When we shoot star trails, most of the time we're going to aim north with our composition. It's not necessary though, and sometimes it's just not even conducive for our scene. So you might get out there and your foreground that you want to do star trails with is is facing south, so you can know that your star trails will look like this instead of like this. I like to shoot east or west because then you kind of get these opposing lines against each other, which are fun to work with. So to capture star trails images, you're going to need a fuller moon. I like to use the moon to actually light paint my foreground for me. I don't pick up as many stars in the sky, but as you can see, sometimes you don't need that many. I will keep my ISO somewhere between 800 to 1600. I will shoot somewhere between f2.8 to f4, just depending on what style I'm choosing. If you want your stars to be blown out and all white, you shoot at f2.8. If you actually want to pick up colors in your stars, like you see in this image with the oranges and the blues, that's f4. You do want to shoot somewhere between 20 and 30 seconds. We actually want our stars to trail faintly because when we go into post-processing, that little bit of trail helps lead into the next image. You're going to set your intervalometer to take anywhere from 100 to 500 images. You'll need at least 100. 500 is great, 800 is better, 1000's even better than that. The more you take, the more dense and colorful your stars will become. I use star stacks to do my star stacking because I like the different stylistic effects that you can get with like the comets and things in this photo. You can't eliminate planes or anything like that, satellites that pass through. So if you want to be able to mask out that kind of stuff, you need to use Photoshop to combine your star trail images. Next, let's talk about twilight shots. So civil twilight is the brightest form of twilight. So there's enough natural sunlight during this period that artificial light may not be required to carry out outdoor activities, and only the brightest celestial objects can be observed by the naked eye during this time. Several countries will use this definition to actually make laws regarding to aviation, hunting, and the usage of headlights and street lamps. This is what we call blue hour. Nautical twilight occurs next when the center of the sun is between 6 degrees and 12 degrees below the horizon. So this twilight period is less bright than civil. And then you have astronomical twilight when you can see most uh, celestial objects in the sky. Twilight occurs before the Milky Way is visible and just is a great time to shoot just the stars. Some settings just to grab some twilight images, again, during the blue hour. ISO 800 to 6400, just depending on what part of twilight you are shooting. You could do just f2.8, f3.2, somewhere between 3 to 8 seconds, and just stack 4 to 9, whatever you need if you're at higher ISOs. And you can just get some really pretty star photos. Not all the time is the Milky Way necessary. All right, so next is meteor showers. Okay, so now you need to know how to catch a shooting star. So when you know what direction that the meteors will originate from, now you can plan accordingly. So if you want the more shorter and frequent meteors, you will need to face the origin, or if you want to face away from it, you'll actually catch more of the streaky type falling stars, only they just won't be as constant as you would see from facing origin. You can easily Google, this one's a couple years old, but you can just Google like meteor showers for whatever year, and it'll tell you exactly the peak and how many meteors now or where it's going to come from and what the lunar phase will be for that night. Okay, so settings for shooting stars. Again, if you want a free meteor shower cheat sheet, you can scan this QR code and download it from my website, mobile friendly, and take it with you. Just anywhere ISO 800 to 6400. So this will just all depend on what lunar phase is out during the night. F2.8 to F3.2. Again, you're going to use that NPF rule. You want super sharp star images. You're going to set your intervalometer to take somewhere 500 images. I will usually just set it up and go to bed and then check my images in the morning. You'll go sit back. You can watch the magic fall, or like I said, go to bed. In the morning, just cull through all the images, find the ones that actually have shooting stars in them, and then layer and blend and mask them together in Photoshop. All right, so now sometimes let's talk about lighting the scene. So low-level lighting is used to light a night scene that otherwise would not be visible. It also helps create a more aesthetically pleasing image by providing a natural-looking contrast between the foreground and the night sky. In this scene, I just had a cheap LED light bar that was set on a tripod off camera to the right, so it helped illuminate not only the little pump that was out in the lake, but also the grass on the side, the fog that was rolling in, and the trees across the bank. And this is on its lowest setting too, and I also had it diffused. So some other great low-level lighting options are lume cubes, and I also use a phone app called Screen Light that will allow you to change the color and the brightness as well on your screen of your phone, and you can just set that wherever you want. A lume cube I like it because it is bright enough to light longer distances, like up to 100 foot. It does fit into the palm of your hand. It is magnetic and waterproof. So you can put it in water. You can light up a waterfall with it. You can stick it to the inside of an old rusty vehicle and light up a vehicle with it. You can put it inside of a tent. Many uses. But the only downside is it maybe lasts 20 minutes or so. They've probably gotten better with their times, but maybe 30 minutes. It's not an all-night tool for you. The LED bar, I charge it once a year and it lasts all year. And I could probably go another year and it would still work. The thing is a rock star. And a great diffusing trick that I learned from a dear friend is take just a cheap old white t-shirt out with you, and if your light is too bright even on its lowest setting, and it needs to be a cotton t-shirt, polyester is too shiny and it will bounce light too harshly onto your subject, make sure it's a cotton t-shirt, and just drape the cotton t-shirt over the light. And if it's still too bright, just fold the t-shirt over, and now you got double the cotton t-shirt, and place that over the light, and you can keep folding the shirt and diffusing the light more and more with each fold. So it's just a great trick. I always have a white t-shirt in my night shooting bag. So light painting is also something really fun you can incorporate into your night images. So what is light painting? This is long exposure photography that uses a moving light source to paint the scene. This can be achieved with flashlights that can be done both on camera and off camera, lightsabers, light painting tools made from acrylic from my favorite's a company called Light Painting Brushes. And you can also get fun gadgets like the pixel stick that you see here. It is a 6 foot tall LED light bar that prints whatever image you want. So I put in a image of a rainbow banner and I walked with it and just walked back and forth like this. And it made that pretty light for me in camera. Um, so you can actually program any image you want into the SD card and put it into the pixel stick. And so if you wanted to print an image of a barn, you could right there on top of those rocks. I also used an off-camera light here, an LED bar, same LED bar off here, shining onto this rock as I walked through with this pixel stick. So you can combine both. All right, so now I want to talk about where to shoot, which is also my why. All right, so dark skies are crucial for astrophotography because they minimize light pollution, which is the unwanted and artificial light that will obscure the stars and other celestial objects in the night sky. When you're taking photos of the night sky, any additional light sources will greatly reduce the visibility of faint stars, nebula, and other objects, as well as blow out the highlights of your image. The human eye has the ability to adapt to low light conditions and perceive faint details, but cameras are very limited in this regard. So this means we need to take extra precautions to ensure that our equipment can capture as much light as possible from the stars and other objects that we want to photograph. In areas with really high levels of light pollution, like cities, the night sky is much brighter than it would be in a rural location. And this just makes it much more difficult to capture the full beauty and detail of the night sky. So therefore, we must find a location with dark skies to get the best possible result for our work. We can use the Bortle scale as a way to reference if a certain area is dark enough. So the Bortle scale is a way of measuring the quality of the night sky for a particular location. There are 9 levels of the Bortle scale, with 9 being the most light polluted. And so to shoot the Milky Way, you want to be at least 4 and down. And so in Arkansas, we have our International Dark Sky Park, the Buffalo National River, it's a 2. So I will still go out to places like New Mexico and Utah where it's a 1. And it's just amazing just to see the difference from here to here. You can also use, like I said, that dark sky ephemeris tool, and that will also help you find your Bortle class on where you're at. And you can also use dark sky maps online, just darkskypollution.com or something will help you. All right, so my obsession with the night sky actually started with my papa and one shooting star. So we spent many evenings of my childhood stargazing, and it always seemed like he would see a shooting star and I would always miss it. And I never saw one until the night that he actually passed away. And that one flying fireball completely changed the trajectory of my entire life. And now every time I go out, I will always see a shooting star. And I know that's just my papa telling me that I am exactly where I need to be and I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. It also didn't help that pretty serendipitous that my very first astrophotography image I ever taking, as soon as I got focused and I hit my shutter button, was a shooting star. So again, just my papa telling me I'm exactly where I should be. And I want everyone else to also be able to experience the magic of watching a meteor fall across the sky. But sadly, over one-third of humanity can't even see the stars. Not only are dark night skies essential to rhythms of life on our planet, but stargazing has also been proven to ease our minds and make us more compassionate towards others. And I'm pretty sure we can agree that we need some more compassion in today's society. So this is why light pollution is such an important topic to me. One of my goals is to bring awareness that light pollution is slowly causing our dark skies to fade away. And it's a topic that is rarely discussed when it comes to our health, and it's greatly affecting us and nature. And it's a form of pollution that's grossly ignored by most people. There are only about half of the states in the country that actually have true dark skies, and I want to advocate not only to just Arkansas, but also all the surrounding states, the dangers of light pollution to us and animals, and offer lighting solutions that would drastically cut down the pollution and energy waste, and also preserve the beauty and awe of our night skies. I'm not so much worried about AI taking my job because it'll never be able to take people out into a border one sky and show them the magic of the stars, but I am worried about artificial light taking my job. And so I need all of y'all to help me stop the pollution. Because eventually I'm not going to have any dark skies to actually go teach in. And our ancestors experienced night sky that was inspired. It inspired science, religion, philosophy, art, and literature. But now millions of youth will never know what it's like to even look at the Milky Way. So again, what is light pollution? So it is the inappropriate or excessive use of artificial light that's harmful to wildlife, humans, and our climate. But unlike a lot of other types of pollution, it is totally reversible and has solutions that are very easy to implement. And the results are immediate and they last. So light pollution not only disrupts our view of the night sky, but also has significant and often detrimental impacts on various species of plants and wildlife. So both plants and animals depend on Earth's daily light and dark cycle for reproduction, nourishment, sleep, and protection. Birds, particularly the migratory species, are very highly impacted by light pollution. So many birds rely on natural light cues for navigation during migration, but artificial lights from buildings and towers in urban areas disorient them and lead them to collide with structures or exhaustion just due to circling the light source. Additionally, light source at night, it disrupts their natural sleeping patterns and affects their health and behavior. You also have frogs that are highly sensitive to light, and light pollution can disrupt their natural behavior. So, for many frog species, especially those that are nocturnal, any artificial light can make them very vulnerable to predators as they become more visible at night. And this disruption to frog populations has a cascading effect on ecosystems because they actually help control the insect population. Light pollution can also have indirect yet profound effects on coral reefs and sea turtles. So, artificial light from coastal development and ships can disrupt the natural behaviors of marine life, particularly those that rely on moonlight for reproduction and navigation. It leads to coral spawning events at the wrong time, and it reduces the chance of successful reproduction. It also increases algae growth due to artificial light, which smothers the coral reefs and then harms their fragile ecosystem. For billions of years, life has evolved on Earth's light and dark rhythm. It's even encoded in the DNA. And life has learned to operate under the natural sky glow of the stars and the moon. So the night signifies when we need to eat, sleep, hunt, or migrate for many animals. And so we as humans have completely disrupted this. Another huge misconception is that the brighter light creates better visibility and therefore enhanced safety. But when you have overly bright street lights in urban areas, it actually has negative consequences like blinding glare and actually reduces visibility and makes it harder to see. The glare creates shadows in dark areas and it just provides better hiding spots for criminals. You can actually see in the slide here. And it also creates an issue when you're driving. It can cause harsh glare on your windshield and just makes it harder to see pedestrians at night. As much as 50% of outdoor lighting is actually wasted, and it increases greenhouse gas emissions and contributes to climate change and actually renders us more energy dependent. In the US alone, about 15 million tons of CO2 are emitted annually to power residential outdoor lighting alone. So this equals the emissions of about 3 million vehicles a day. To offset that carbon dioxide, we actually need to plant about 600 million trees annually, and about $3 billion of energy is lost to bad lighting each year. Tucson actually saved $2.2 million in just 2018 alone by upgrading its street lights and also reduced its light pollution by 7%. And even if you're just leaving on lights at night in your office building, it's wasting energy and adding to the sky glow of the city. So being like dark sky friendly does not mean no light at all. It just means using it intentionally and using the most efficient light when it's needed. So there's over 1,000 dark sky certified lighting fixtures on the market that you can choose from. So again, small changes can not only help you save energy and money, but also you can help save our night skies. Studies also suggest that artificial light at night is negatively affecting our health by increasing our risk for obesity, sleep disorders, depression, diabetes, breast cancer, and more. According to National Geographic, light pollution is affecting human health, wildlife behavior, and our ability to observe stars and other celestial objects. Artificial light can wreak havoc on natural body rhythms in both human and animals. Nocturnal light Nocturnal light interrupts sleep and confuses the circadian rhythm in nearly all living organisms. One of these processes is the production of the hormone melatonin, which is released when it is dark and is inhibited when there is light present. As increased amount of light at night lowers melatonin production, which results in sleep deprivation, fatigue, headaches, stress, anxiety, and other health problems. Recent studies also show a connection between reduced melatonin levels and cancer. In fact, new scientific discoveries about the health effects of artificial light have convinced the American Medical Association to support efforts to control light pollution and conduct research on the potential risks of exposure of light at night. Okay, so what can you as a community do to help? You can actually just install exterior lighting only when and where it is needed. Make sure you just shield your lights so they only shine down on the ground so it will reduce the glare into the sky. They don't need to be any brighter than necessary. You can also use controls like timers, dimmers, and motion sensors. Also use warmer colors of light. Really try to limit your use of blue light whenever you can. And you can also donate or become a member of the International Dark Sky Association. As a community, you can come together to help adopt a citywide lighting regulation and change your streetlights to more efficient methods. Campaign to turn off commercial lights when they're not needed. You can advocate to join the IDA as a community, and you can work with local government to keep the light on the ground and the night skies natural. And I would love it. One of my biggest goals and dreams would to find a city that'd be willing to do this and have a blackout event to where voluntarily we just turn out the lights and be able to stand in the middle of downtown and see the Milky Way in the middle of a city. I think that'd be really cool. So if you know any town that'd be willing to do that, let me know. Okay, so what has astrophotography given back to me? So diminished my sense of fear of the night. I have been able to reconnect with nature. My problems now feel infinitesimal compared to the entire universe. This has pushed me to my limits, which has forced me to expand astronomically. I have learned to slow down and run on celestial time. And I do have some upcoming astro workshops. If you want to last minute jump in on Galaxies of the Gods, it's based out of Mexican Hat, Utah, in the Bortle One Sky of Southeast Utah. We will be exploring Valley of the Gods, Gooseneck State Park, and the Moki Dugway, which is a Utah state highway with some amazing views. You can scan this QR code for the sign up for it. There's also, if you want to stay closer, come to Arkansas, to the Buffalo River, to our International Dark Sky Park. I'm doing a tracking workshop where I will provide astro trackers. They're MSM nomads, and I will teach you how to use it. And you can borrow it for 30 minutes and get some great track shots of the sky and even play with some really cool creative filters like the sparkle filter here. You can sign up here. Also have a Milky Way boot camp. This one's really cool. I'm excited about this. This one is sponsored by Canon and co-hosted with Bedford Camera and Video. So Canon is going to be there and they will have all the cameras and lenses you could think you might want to try. Even if you don't own the right gear, you can come. with nothing in your hand, and I can hand you a tripod, and Candy can hand you a camera, and Bedford is there to answer any questions. And we're gonna be at the Salt Plains Wildlife Refuge in Oklahoma and the Gloss Mountains doing astrophotography in September. So if you want to sign up, there's the QR code there. Also have a ton of photo freebies. So I mentioned earlier the lunar cheat sheet and star trail cheat sheet. I also have a Milky Way cheat sheet that you can get if you just scan this QR code. I also have ISO charts, f-stop charts, tons of different resources from free. I have some guides. I have all sorts of things just to help you along this journey. Right, and in conclusion, every night under the stars will undoubtedly become an adventure that you are always going to remember. You are never going to be bored with photography when you learn how to shoot during every hour of the day. The person that you choose to be your night shooting partner will become your best friend. You can never pack enough headlamps, extra batteries, or memory cards. It will take you to some of the most amazing places because it's going to start up your wanderlust every February, and you're going to be wondering where you can go to shoot the stars next. You're going to learn how to sleep wherever and whenever you can when you wait for the stars to align. And because your eyesight is actually hindered, your other senses will kick into hyperdrive. So you're going to hear things and you're going to smell things that you wouldn't think you would in the night. You're never going to regret missing the sleep for stars, but you will regret if you sleep in on a moonless, clear night. And what always goes bump in the night are armadillos. And so thank you so much. And then here's all my contact information. Again, a QR code will take you right to my website. So if you have any questions on it.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna I don't see any questions in here for you, but I want to bring out a comment that Susan threw in here. She says, Brennan, do you know the book The End of Night by Paul Bogart? And she says that it would be very relevant to your presentation. So anybody listening, not just for Brennan, The End of Night by Paul Bogart. And you're nodding like you're familiar
Yes.
with it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
had a
okay.
client tell me about it. He's from the same town that he was from. And he was like, oh, if you've not read this book, you have to read this book. It's amazing. It talks all about it. It talks about the health implications and this and that. I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah, it's on my list.
Okay, good, good, good. Okay. Well, as Susan's a well-read attendee, so she often recommends books and
Cool.
articles that we should be. Yeah. So I'm glad that you already know about it, but I wanted to make sure that I said something so everybody in the room
Yes.
would know
Yes.
that
It's
was
helping
in
light
there.
pollution.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, now she's saying he's actually a friend of
Oh,
hers. So there you go.
very cool. My client
Okay.
Akbar would have a field day with this right now. He was telling me all about that book. So
Well, Brendan, this was a wonderful, literally beautiful title, Introduction to Astrophotography. And you're not the first person to do an astrophotography presentation for us, but there's a friend of mine that comes in here almost, she's not here tonight, which is very unusual, but she says there's always a takeaway. Somebody we're all shooting the same thing. We're all kind of starting with the same kind of knowledge, but everybody brings something different. So, my quick takeaway was, okay, white t-shirts. Everybody get a white
yes,
t-shirt. Add it to your camera
put it in
toys.
your packing
So,
list.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great. There were quite a few things that you did say that kind of stood out to me, but that one in particular was kind of genius. So, yeah. So, all right, let me go ahead and close out your session. I want to thank you for coming and sharing with this group. And I know it was kind of one of these, I don't know who this person is, but you didn't hesitate to say yes to the
Yeah.
introduction. And that means a whole lot to all of us. So, all right. Next week, Terry Jankalo will be here to share her presentation, The Art of Dog Photography. So, y'all have a good night, and we'll see you next week.